Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors. We believe one thing. Everyone has a Shit Creek story. This week, we're looking at getting your life back on track through a different lens. Think about the gym. Each rep can be painful. Each rep can be uncomfortable, but each rep is also part of getting stronger. Getting your life back on track is also painful, and it doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens through the reps. One conversation, one workout, one page, one meditation, one decision to try again. Each rep starts to add up, and eventually those reps create something called momentum. This week, we're talking about going from trauma to momentum and how the mindset of putting in the reps can actually help us get our lives back on track. This is Ben Barbic's story, and this is this week's Shit Creek. Ben, thank you so much for being here on Shit Creek Survivors. If you would introduce yourself to our audience and let us know a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name's Ben Barbic, and as of now, I'm an author. My book came out a month and a half ago. I'm a musician, father, husband, and I think, ultimately I've become podcast guest and public speaker, and I think that's part of this journey. If you put out a book, memoir about your life, then you want to get out there and, tell your story, dive into it in different angles and connect with people. So real grateful to be here,
Thank you. Yeah, it's such a pleasure. And I'm so interested in kind of hearing your story from your Shit Creek to what it taught you, to what you would say to the person sitting in the mud. You know what I mean? So tell us a little bit about kind of like what Shit Creeks you may have run into. Was there one in particular you want to talk about today? Or is it kind of just like an ongoing accumulation like sometimes tends to happen?
Yeah, I think, in writing a memoir, it really was able to isolate the origin of Shit Creek for me, right? I was able to really find what happened. And, as you write a book, you kind of find your through line, you find your premise, you find what's the commonality in life, what was I struggling with, and when the struggle began. So for me, it was about 5 years old. My father was a professional motorcycle racer, and we had a bunch of motorcycle dealerships.
Wow.
We lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and within the span of a couple of months, his manager embezzled from the dealership, and we lost the dealership. So the whole motorcycle culture that I grew up with was gone.
Oh, wow.
Right after that, our house burnt down in a forest fire. And so what happened with those two things was literally just my whole world got taken from us. We lost all our clothes. We lost everything. We were in a donated trailer. We were up in the mountains, and we were just surrounded by redwood trees. We had no power. We had no plumbing. It was basically stripped down to this void.
Okay.
And we were in that for a couple of years. And within that scope, there really wasn't anything, as a kid, you don't know what a heaviness, a cloud feels like, right? It's just being a kid, and it was in that trailer, in that place that I got a little keyboard, and it was the first time that I found music could be something I could escape to.
Yeah.
And so in that trailer, I found, okay, this is this one thing, a world that can't be touched. It's a world that I can go into that's completely mine to create how I want.
Yeah.
So we were in there a couple of years. We rebuilt our house, and we're in it 6 months, a year. And so I was pretty happy. And then an earthquake came and destroyed our house. So we had just built it, just moved in. I started the inner soundtrack, as I like to say, came back, and then we lost it again. And so after the second time, I remember going back to the house and just seeing everything destroyed and, fish on the floor, all my stuff broken. And I didn't know what it was. I just felt like I was dying. And so I sat on the deck. I didn't tell anybody, but I'm like, man, I feel like I'm dying. Like something's really wrong. But I just held it in. I didn't want to really take it beyond that. For some reason, I didn't want to acknowledge that maybe something was wrong, I guess, and share it. And so I didn't, and I just kind of held it in, and then panic attacks and things started. Really high anxiety started, and then like a year after that, my appendix ruptured inside of me, and it got really bad. Very serious thing with regards to appendix. It was kind of the extreme of it.
Okay.
And after I got out of the hospital and off of the meds and things, I just started to feel that nothing could be trusted. So if my environment can't be trusted, if my body can't be trusted, then I don't know what's going to come next, because those were not things that I controlled, right? Those were things that just happened. And it was like, well, wow, if these things happen without me doing anything, just living, then what's next? And so it began this long struggle, with anxiety and not trusting environments. And any environment that I felt trapped in, I would experience anxiety. And, it was almost like I just was trying to avoid being with it. Sleeping was difficult, night terrors, kicking walls, all these things that go along with, that type of thing. And again, I didn't observe it I didn't acknowledge it as being that difficult, if you will, because it was just kind of my experience. And so,
right. You didn't know different.
I didn't know different. And so, I felt different from the other kids in class and things in a lot of ways. I felt, I was an only child. And I was going through these things. I remember when the earthquake happened, some kids were like, "Oh, that was fun." I'm like, "Fun? I just lost everything. You had fun. I didn't." So it was just this unique situation that kind of planted a seed for me of struggle. And again, I didn't want to acknowledge anything about it. Like Ma said, "Hey, you want to go talk to some?" Nah, don't want to talk about nothing. I'm gonna lock in on this thing. So I carried that, and I carried it for quite some time. And I found, peace within the music, but I also had that inner seed of frustration and rebelliousness that was brewing, because it was just, obviously it turned inward. I mean, there's no dealing with any of the things properly. So that's kind of the first parts of my life up until, 11, 12, where I was really kind of struggling with something that, defined my life for a good many years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I heard something recently, and I was just jotting it down, that these traumas that happened to us in the past, and we bury them. We talk about burying our feelings and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They made an important distinction that, remember, when you bury these feelings, you're burying them alive.
Yeah.
Meaning they're still in there living. So even that childhood, those memories of life isn't safe. I mean, it kept showing you things change and it's for the bad. And so you're like, you get isolated in that view. What's next? And you go into preparation for what's coming. Did you ever find yourself like almost hard to be happy because you knew something doom wise was coming? Did that ever?
Yeah. Happiness was definitely uncomfortable, right? So it's not a place where you can sit with comfortably. Even into young adulthood, that stayed with me, where if it was too good, if it was, everything was too nice, too much of a smiley happiness, that felt so foreign that I wasn't comfortable with it. And so, that's when that's unusual, and you're not able to absorb it properly. I think that's it's a tragedy in a lot of ways, but it's a reality.
Yeah. And another thing you mentioned that's so profound, that tracks through so many different stories, is like, when you're a child, you don't know any better. You don't have an adult mind that's seen thousands of families and how they operate and what's the middle and, what are the good things, what are the bad things. Like, you're born into it. So you assume that everyone else is living the same thing. And then at school, you kind of got some drips of, well, other kids are seeing the same situation way different than me. What the heck's going on? And that, so you get in your own head and kind of run in circles for a while. That was my problem. I was told eventually one of the most dangerous places I can go by myself is my own head.
I mean, that's the truth, though. I mean, like, and I think only once you climb out of it do you realize how different life can be. I mean, that's what's interesting, is I couldn't write a book on this thing until I knew what the other side of this was, right? And so, and that, I mean, honestly, that's the fuel to never want to go backward to me, right? This now is become this other thing, and this other thing, I have a fire inside of me to maintain and to push forward, and like, oh, what can this actually, what can I accomplish now? Now when free of these burdens and this, I like to just think of a cloudy sky and it opening up, and it's the bright skies. And eventually it's like, even if it's cloudy outside, it's sunny in my mind, is a phrase I like to think about. So even when it is cloudy or it is difficult now, I still maintain a certain sense of inner purpose, inner worth. I don't want to say happiness, but even to a certain extent, a little bit of happiness.
Yeah.
Even in the difficult times, just knowing how far things have gone and what's been accomplished, and starting to carry the past much differently. Because for so long, man, I didn't want to talk about anything,
Right.
with the past, or I didn't want to talk about my rock bottom moments and the times that I was really struggling and making some very bad decisions. And, I was embarrassed of them. And I think that, writing the book, and I was on a podcast, my first podcast, it was like 4 years ago. And he brought up some stuff of like, oh, when you got in some legal trouble or whatever. And I was like, I was so afraid to even talk about anything related to things that, shined negatively on me, that when he asked these questions, I was like, oh, wait, this is the first time that I could talk about that. When you go out and you're drinking and you're angry and someone else is angry, oh, that's a recipe for disaster. That is absolutely the worst thing you could be doing, is going out angry, not caring, and meeting another person who doesn't care, and then having an exchange of not caring. Right. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, even these things, even when I was in my frustrated phase, going out and having disagreements that got a little too significant, there's a lesson in that thing. And so when I started taking that and putting it into the book and saying, look, I know where people are at. I know when things are uncomfortable and, you're not in a place you want. Maybe, whatever, your girlfriend broke up with you, or you can't see your kids, or fill in the blanks. Yeah. I know what that seed of uncomfortableness is. I've been there, and I've also been there and used the fuel of that to self-destruct. And I've been there to use that fuel to push in forward. And so I've been both of those. And so once I realized that I had something within that to bring to the table and say, all right, well, these are I kind of like to think of them as food groups. I was like, these are the food groups that got me out of it, like I'm like, okay, so therapy, I went to therapy. Okay. Yeah. I read about this in my book. Like, some people have a stigma on that, right? Stigma on what that is and all these things. And I'm like, well, that might've been the case for me too. But when I opened it up to it, it wasn't that at all. And, and I talk about a little bit in the book, interesting pieces of that, where, like, if you watch The Sopranos, there's a mob boss who goes to therapy, right? Yeah. And in some weird way, I needed these strange validations because of just where I was at mentally to give me that gate to go there. And so, any little thing, if you kind of clear the window of it, can activate a desire. Okay, the subtle change, right? The subtle change from me saying, "Nah, man, I'm not doing that," to like, oh, actually, let me try this thing. Like, why not? Why not? Let's just see what a conversation can be. And then, through that, I started having the joy within it. And that became like one of the highlights of my week, was going there and sharing, and getting that feedback back. So that's just one example of something that, just allowing yourself a little bit of mobility from just this hardwired, there's this whole other lane, there's this whole other place to go. And I had the same thing with meditation. And it just, it was, and I write about this in the book. It just so happened I went to the right friend's house at the right time, and it lined up perfectly for what I was willing to dive into. And then it became this massive thing where I was doing it 2 times a day for 45 minutes. And, it was another one of these food groups, man, that in that lowest moment, I was willing to do it, because I was like, this is too terrible. Either I'm going to just commit to this is going to be my life, and this is just a terrible, I don't say terrible life, but this is the decisions I'm going to make, and I'm going to have guilt about this forever, or I'm going to be willing to just kind of make these subtle, all right, let me just try that. It's not committing to meditation twice a day for 5 years. It's right. Let me just try that thing. Let's just see what that thing is. Let's just see what this therapy thing is. Let's just see what it's like to, we go into all kinds of different ones, but that's the general concept and why I eventually wrote the book, because of these food groups that keep me, motivated every day. And even if I'm not in the happiest of moods, like I still do them. And so there's the residual of that is, you get a little better at most of them every day, man. So like,
Yeah.
even if you're not happy, you just do it. It's just like, if you just treat it like brushing teeth or something, it's just like, all right, yeah, I'm going to tie my shoes. I'm going to, I'm going to read some good books. I'm going to do a little bit of exercise, even if it's 5 minutes. And, I just think that stacking to me it really excites me. Like, as you could see, like, I get amped on it because it's like, I didn't do that for so long.
Yeah. It's kind of like keep like once, let's say when life feels at a low point, your not motivation, but you don't have any, what's it called when you keep the ball moving? Not
momentum.
Yeah. So at first, when you've got that stone, you've got to get moving. It seems impossible. But when you start getting it moving, even with these small little things, you're like, oh, there's power to this. Oh, there's power to this. And then you get the ball moving. And you're like, that ball is not stopping. You know what I mean? So you just keep going. And like you said, you get it to even like your days where you're like, I don't want to do this, but you do it anyways. And at the end of the day, sometimes those are the most appreciated days. You're like, I actually did it anyways,
Right.
and you're proving to yourself that you can do it, and you start building that kind of like self-respect. I don't know why I had to get to a point where it was like rock bottom, and then I would try things that I wouldn't try before. And I've heard it said a couple different ways. One is like, you'll make that leap to recovery or to whatever it is when the pain of the situation you're in is more than the fear of trying the new thing.
Right.
And I was like, that makes so much sense. Because for me, it doesn't come across my mind like that. It's more like, what do I have to lose? What do I have to lose? And then I tried meditation many times where I couldn't even I couldn't lay there without thinking of anything, obviously. So then I was like, all right, so how do I do it? And then, I started learning about, counting as you're doing it, and then counting to 1. And if you can get to 2, that's great. And a lot of my first meditations were just like 1, 1, 1. And I would do that maybe for 2 minutes the first time, but at least I said I did it. And then the next time I tried to get to 5 minutes, it was a little bit easier because I was more familiar.
Yeah, man. Well, and it's like I'm a big weightlifter, fitness guy, and it mirrors the reps of weightlifting, because it's like you go in there and you want to get a little stronger every time, and the same thing with the mind, man. Like oh wow, that training a week later, I'm a little more polished at it. I'm a little more polished. So I think the background in that to me was good, because you could see such easy to chart results, in weightlifting, and then start to see it in other things where it's like, oh, okay, I write every day, or I work on podcasts. Oh, I get better at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, I'm fascinated by that process. And like you just said, man, like when you started meditation, there's no stillness of the mind, like it's at least for me, it's like, it was just chatter. Now I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this. And then slowly, okay, now I'm going to hyper focus on this one thing, and how long can I keep my attention on this thing? Yeah. And then one day you turn around and your legs asleep because you were sitting there, like that's where, it just starts with this tiny little thing, man. I mean, even 30 seconds, it works, like that's still enough. I mean, and that could be said for anything. I mean, it could be said for reading, writing, music, like just putting in the smallest little rep every day is like, all right, and
I love that.
I even did that with my dad, my pops, man. He was he hadn't been exercising, and I'm like, just send me a done every day, and so he did like a couple reps, couple push-ups in the mornings, and now it's like a year later, he's still sending me done every morning. Awesome. And but it just started with this tiny little thing, just send me done, man. Just send me done.
It's like a seed, tiny little seed.
Yeah.
And it grows a little bit more. And I love the seed analogy too, because the roots are growing first before you see the plant. You know what I mean? So although you're not seeing the change, it's happening. And then all of a sudden, pow, it emerges. And you're like, how did it get so strong so fast? It's like, no, it worked on the root system first. Yep. So it could support whatever was coming afterwards. Yeah, that's really well said. I love the analogy of the workout reps compared to the time in meditation, because that would really, that helps me a lot, because I still struggle with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
when it comes to the gym, I'm able to look at it. I don't know. I'm able to break it down. So I'm like, all right, fine. I got to do 5 reps of 12. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's
Right.
4 times 3. I can count to 4 times 3. You know what I mean? And then you're
Mm-hmm.
able to like break it down into something very simple where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I can do that. No problem. What else am I going to do? You know, and your
Right.
mind shifts to that. And then you can do that with other things. It takes practice, but I mean, that's really, really important. The reps, like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Because
that's how
it's
you
like,
get into the gym. You're like, all right, I
that's
got to
it. It's the same
start
thing.
here at this
Yeah.
weight,
That's
and
it.
and even if there's no weight on the bar, I just got to start with the bar, you know. And I'll do the bar
Yeah.
10 times, and then next day I'll put on some 5s, and then the next
That's right.
day maybe I'll put on, or next week I'll put on some 10s, and kind of keep growing, keep building. So it's a building process. I like that a lot. I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
man. Cool. Yeah. I mean, and it's, and like, I've applied it to a lot of things like writing, like I just started writing my book. I was going, I had a layover, for going to do a music show, and I just started typing it, in my phone, just, and I was like, oh, let me just tell my story, just how I got here and things like that. And then as I kept writing, I was like, the next couple of days, I did it again. And then I'm like, oh, I'm kind of enjoying this, So then I kind of got more serious with it. And
Yeah.
then it just became like a habit of every morning. I wake up for the family. And I wake up to have that stillness to just write, declare. I can't do it at night because my kids were too young to, you
Yeah.
know, stay up late like that. So I created that morning space, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna read a little bit, and I'm gonna write a little bit. And some mornings, honestly, it's a paragraph,
Hmm.
read, paragraph written. But I turned around and I'm like, man, book took me like 8 years, but that 8 years was like writing a little bit every day and not really looking at the end. I'm hesitant to even talk about the end, the 8 years of stuff, because it's really just like head down every day a little bit,
Yeah.
and then you could turn around every once in a while and see how far you come. Like, oh man, I've been writing a week, a month, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Same thing with reading. I was never a reader, and then I just started craving information on what I wanted to learn about, and
Hmm.
just if something fits, then I read it. If the book doesn't land with me, I don't read it. I put it aside. And so I really like to look at things like that. Like the improvement factor always to me goes back to weightlifting, like
Hmm.
the concept. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that sounds a lot more manageable. Compared to like, keep trying. It's like, no, you did great. You actually did what you were supposed to do today. You hit the reps
Yeah.
you were supposed to hit, and
Yeah.
it's all part of the program to get you here. You know what I mean? We just got to stay focused on the day, conquer the day, and then move on to the next one the next day. I like that. That breaks it down for me instead
Yeah.
of it being like a huge mountain I'm looking at. It's like, no, we're going to climb this part of the hill, and then we're going to climb this part of the hill, and then we're going to climb this part of the hill. You're like, oh, I can do that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really good way to kind of put it. I appreciate that. And you were saying that so you actually ran into some more kind of difficult times in your 20s.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to kind of elaborate on that and what happened?
Yeah. I think I just went through I had a son young. I was 22 when my son was born, and
Okay.
I wasn't able to be. I was with him every weekend. I drive 5 hours to pick him up every Friday, and
Hmm.
I committed to that. But through that time period, I went and I was at sound engineering school. I was just focused on music, and I my life kind of shifted over, and I just became lost in a very simple concept that I didn't realize is I was letting life beat me down, and I was just I wasn't taking control of anything. So that if that's drinking too much, if it's out going and getting in fights, if that's driving when I shouldn't while drinking, and I started to become a regular in this thing, meaning my identity started to shift to somebody who was part of this thing that was just looking the furthest thing from thriving. And
Hmm.
friends started shifting. What I was consuming started shifting from just what I was watching, how I was spending my days, the food intake. And I'll get real clear on this. So on my 28th birthday, I spent the night in jail again. And I was in there, and the guy next to me was like 20 years older than me. And he basically said, man, it's another Saturday night. And I realized I had been there in that situation too many times before, and that this was actually starting to be normal. And that normal, and I was overweight too. That normal was so far from what I thought I was. So I got a friend dropped me off at home, and I went into my house, and my son and my girlfriend had made this teddy bear from Build-A-Bear. Yeah. And you press the hand, and it said, "We love you, Daddy." Right. And in that moment, I wasn't giving them what they deserved, plain and simple. I wasn't being the father. I wasn't being the boyfriend at the time. I was making bad decisions, and I wasn't setting myself up for anything. I had to deal with legal matters. I had to deal with the fact that I was a musician, but I wasn't releasing music. I wasn't doing music. I was doing fitness, but I was way out of shape. They put me down as obese on my intake when I went in, Yeah. And so I gave up being that person that day. And the next day I decided I had a lot to deal with, but I was going to just change basically all aspects of life. So it was removing substances. It was, taking away the things that were bad and then introducing the things that were good. And it was small. I mean, the first thing I did was I joined at the community college by my house. I joined a class, an online class, right? Yeah. And pushed alcohol out of my life for a few years. It was not for me. And, looked at all substances that I was on, whether that be the prescription pills I was taking, whether that be the nicotine, whether that be the alcohol or anything else, and just started eliminating things and adding things back in. And so one by one, I added in school. I went to therapy, started meditation. I started running. A friend of mine was like, you should try half marathon. So I went to the track, still real overweight, and ran 4 miles. And I was like, okay, I ran 4 miles. Not good, but I did it. I felt like I was going to die after, but I did 4 miles. Yeah. So then I just loaded it up, and I was like, okay, that feels good. That feels a lot better than this other thing. I'm going to continue with that. And then I took it and put it to my music too. I got in a band at the time. I started pushing out music. Then I eventually became, independent artist. But it all really stems from something pretty simple, and that is the moment of taking control of my life. And so,
yeah, that pivot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as things happen now, I'm anchored in all these things. I don't react like, let the world do what it needs to me. I feel I actually deserve to continue forward. You know what I mean? So any losses, I'm not really looking as that's what I'm sitting on, because it's always continue. So like, let's say I release a song that doesn't do as well. Well, it doesn't matter. I got another song queued up to release. I'm not ever stopping. Write a book. I'm writing another book, another hill to climb. So like I'm always looking at things where, okay, it's a setback, but that's not gonna define me. And to me, it's important to have things in multiple categories, because let's say you get injured and your fitness is your thing. Well, yeah. During your injury, are you going to be vulnerable during your injury to some negative stuff? Or do you have enough pieces in place to where, that injury you can sustain? You're not going to be feeling a feeling of loss. You have enough other multidimensionality to where you can overcome these things. So I'm a big proponent of that, just on a daily basis, for making sure that the journey goes forward as much as possible. Now, I know there's things that can hit you that completely shut things down, right? I'm not denying that. But to a point, I'm just saying I'm going to do everything I can to take control of whatever I actually can take control over. And, things like that happen that are not in my control, I'm not going to let those define me or break me down, that's
maturity. I think that takes time to develop. You know what I mean? Because I'm still working on that. And then I look back in the past, I'm like, man, I didn't have any idea how to do that in the past, you know?
Right.
I was very reactionary compared to like proactive. So if something bad happened, it was like, boom, everything stops. And of course it happened to me and all this kinds of stuff. But when you start living that life where you keep the stone moving, it becomes addictive. And so like, no matter what happens, you're like, okay, and
that's right.
You know what I mean? Like you become almost more powerful because you realize that no matter what happens, you are not going to stop. It's not going to define your life or anything like that. That's a scary moment. I'm kind of stepping back here a little bit when you have that pivot point. Because for me, when I had like an example would be like getting sober. And this happened a whole bunch of times. Like I was 100 pounds overweight. I had decided to lose the weight and it wasn't going to happen with a 30-day diet. You know what I mean? It was going to have to happen with a whole like change. And so you get scared at the beginning there. You know, we've talked about fear being a lake that looks like it's a mile deep and a mile wide. But when you take the first step, it's only 2 inches or, you know, like it just gets so big on you. And you were mentioning that like in that moment when you had to pivot, it almost sounded like you decided, and I can relate to this in my like moment, especially on my way to therapy when I knew I had to get sober and I was just really, really struggling. You know, you find that power in like, I'm not going down like this. And I don't know why, I don't know why we find it at that last moment, but it's like you get to the point where you accept, you're like, this is what I'm going to be remembered for. Like I'm going to be remembered for how I respond to this situation. And if I just lay here, nothing's going to happen. But if I get up and at least I try, I've got that. It doesn't have to work, but I'm trying. You know what I mean? Like I went down swinging compared to just giving up. And there is power in those moments. So anyone listening, you know, we all go through those, you know, and you got to make a tough decision. It's not the easy decision, but I think you were talking about like forks in the road earlier, you know, the idea that, you know, you have to make a decision what path you're going to go. You've reached the timeline on how long you can wait and you got to pick the right decision, but it's not the easy decision. It's hard in those moments. Could you speak to those moments at all? Like how would you encourage someone to kind of, or how did you encourage yourself?
So, I think within that, it's now I don't want to preface self-love in the traditional sense, but I think in a way it's important to mark it with that, because I think in the lowest moment, if we can see ourselves, you know, maybe as if we were older, looking back at ourselves and thinking, you know, to care more about the self than what I'm going to speak for myself, what I was putting myself through, to say, look, I deserve more than this, you know, and I won't say loving myself, but no, this is not who I'm supposed to be, you know, and really believe in that. Cause I think like, you know, when you're kind of beat down or you're holding stuff, it's like anything that comes along, you kind of just dig deeper with it and your mind just kind of hammers it, you know, like, hammer, cause it feels normal. So you're like, okay, problem, dig that down. And I think being aware of that and saying, wait, why am I doing that? Like, why am I digging deeper into myself? And so that's what I mean when I say self-love, man, is like, no, that's not what we should be doing to ourselves. Like we're literally our inner mind war. We're losing and we're just, you know, attacking by it. And so,
I recently have been like debating like in my own head, why am I doing that? And I have to say it out loud. I go, I'm doing it again. I'm drilling down a hole that's only going to spend energy, create feelings that feel real, and I'm going to respond to them accordingly. So I'm like almost like creating a situation in my mind that makes me feel a real feeling, which disrupts my day. It's like nuts.
Yeah. And you could feel it like when it hits, like just boom, like, you know, at least for me, like I'm going along and boom, something that, that ain't good, or you can't, whatever it is. And so, so that's where I think the progress is important. And I also think you know, like I was saying about the meditate, like we also don't want to be just ignoring things, going for progress. And then at night when you're laying in the bed, you just because you're vulnerable now, it's all coming at you. You know what I mean? And so, so I think that allowing ourselves that, like saying, oh, you know, maybe we need to take care of ourselves a little more. And, you know, and if you have other people that look to you, name it. I think that that's another source of it is, you know, they deserve this. That's outward, but then also I deserve this. So like, you know, however you're looking at it, like, oh, my kids, my wife, my family, my friends, whatever, they deserve more from me. Well, then I deserve more from me too, you know, like, because I'm the one grinding through it. And so, so that little switch where like allowing that, you know, allowing the wins too, because dude, imposter syndrome, all these things, you know, it's all real stuff. And so just allowing even the smallest of wins is important, you know? And,
because if you're not cheering for you, like no one else is, you know, and we kind of, I think I wait for other people to cheer for me. So I know I'm doing well when really that should be like an internal thing. It should really be like, I know the goal I set, I accomplished it. I didn't accomplish it, whatever it is. I still love it. Like you said, I need to love myself at the end of the day. It's not my wife's job to tell me that I'm lovable. It's not like anybody else's. Like at the end of the day, have to respect the human that I am. And at least I'm trying, even at my worst moments, you know what I mean? It's like, at least I haven't given up, you know what I mean? And you just kind of keep moving. That's sorry. I just popped out in my head when you're saying that.
No. I like that. I mean, I think that's just a vital piece to this. And,
it's hard. It's really hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
And with men, especially leaders of households, usually the problem or the buck stops with you. You know what I mean? So one person, say a child has a problem, they say it to one of the parents, and then one of the parents is usually the one who handles the problem. So that parent tells it to the parent, and it's usually the male figure. I'm not trying to generalize, or I guess I am generalizing, but I'm just saying, like, typically we find a lot of men in some really, we'll say, tight spaces because they feel like the buck stops with them. They're responsible for everything, and it puts a lot of weight on your shoulders, you know.
I don't mind sharing something on that. So, you know, anxiety was present in my life. And as we mentioned, you know, there's times when things are so good that's uncomfortable. And,
that's weird, isn't it? You're like, something's going to happen soon.
Well, and so this goes back to my past. So about 10 years ago, I was on a plane to Hawaii with my wife and my 2 kids. And it was one of those moments that was so good that I had a panic attack. And it was the last time I had one. It was residual from the past. Yeah. But it was like, I still needed to process this thing. You're talking about grown men and things. Like, I was in this place, you know, in my 30s with kids going to Hawaii. And it was so foreign to be that, wow, look I set all this up it was just, again, that grinding, who you think you are kind of thing, you know, like, and so it was processing that. And I was over there and I was like, oh shit, like I got to fly home and all these things. And then it just, what I decided to do the whole flight, I think it was 5 hours back, was meditate the whole time. So I just got on the plane. I meditated the whole time back, just stayed in my own head. And I'm not above anything ever coming back. So I'm not going to ever say that, but that's the last time I had a panic attack, was that on that plane that time. And I was able to kind of shift my identity to the comfort of who I'd become, not who I was. And we were carrying since I was 5 years old. Right. It's like,
wow.
So,
what a moment.
It was a powerful moment, man. And, but
that's what
I
I'm
know
talking about. Those emotions are buried alive. Whew. Like they're still in there, ready to pop out. Like when I heard that the other day, I was like, that makes so much sense, because when these emotions come out, they feel as powerful as the day that it happened. You know what I mean? Or it's like holding a hot coal. You know what I mean? Like, and you didn't realize it was burning inside of you the whole time, and then finally getting it out and setting it down and being like, I don't have to carry you anymore. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like a transitional moment in a person's life. Like, totally.
It absolutely is. And I mean, there's, you know, the week before my book released was similar in a way, right? Okay, I'm giving out my whole story. The world now can digest all of these things we're talking about, and then, you know, really explained out thoroughly in a lot of different ways. And it was the same moment of vulnerability, and, you know, mentally, there's a moment where the world then attacks it. You know, attacks me because of what was, again. So there's these levels where I had to get through. And after that week, it dissolved away. And then I was ready to do podcasts. I was ready to talk about the book, talk about it, and so, these things reveal themselves in different ways. And, particularly in the work you and I do, I can assure people, like, through the repetition of going through it, it dissolves, it helps to dissolve. It doesn't, I'll never say anything completely goes away, because I respect these things too much to ever be cocky with any progress, right? I fully aware that anything can reveal itself in some form, but I do feel I'm prepared to a big extent, and a lot of it's dissolved, because there's no way back in the day, I'm going to speak for you, but I would be sitting here talking about this stuff, like there's no way.
No way.
It had to have this whole process to it. And look, I don't know where things are now compared to where they're going, but I know where they were. And I definitely know the things that got me out of it,
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you look back, especially when you've gotten through a pivot point or however many you got to get through.
Yeah.
And you put the time in, you put your head down, you put your time in, you're not looking around for other people to congratulate you because you've got work to do. Yeah. And when you pop your head up a week, a month, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, that's when you start to understand the journey. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I learned so much in these moments that hurt me. Like, it was like I was on fire in these moments, but I learned the most. It developed me. All these things, every click of the pool balls all brought you to the moment that you're in right now.
Yeah.
And that includes the times of pain. And that's.
Yeah. So it's like the question, would you change anything? Like,
I don't think I would.
Yeah. So I wouldn't either. I wouldn't change anything. And so.
And that's crazy.
It is crazy. But it's how, it's like, I don't know, man. It's crazy, but like, it got us to where we are, but it's not even about where we are. It's just about, it got us to how we live, like it got us to the philosophy.
Yeah.
That this is going to this is what it is. And this isn't the end game. I call it rise and climb, but it's not like you're climbing to just one peak, like it's just, I crave that. I crave pushing the boulder up the hill, because it's like, I love the process within it, and to turn down and say, oh, look how high up the hill we are now. All right, there's the next one. Let's go climb that mountain now. You know? So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. And then people look at you, they're like, how do you do this? And you look right back at them, you're like, I don't really know. I just started at some point, and then it was one thing led to another, and then led to another, and led to another, and then led to another, and then it opened this door, and then opened that door, and then like, boom, here I am. And they're like, really? All that started just by getting sober for you, Cameron. I'm like, yep, pretty much. And then,
yeah,
it's just, it all adds up.
It all adds up. Yeah. And it's not, I don't think I think goals are good. I think laying it out, to-do lists and things are very effective, but, ultimately the answer of how did you get there? And I don't know is, there's such value in that. You know what I mean? Like, I really like the thought of that is, how did I get to sit here today? What order of events got here? It's like, oh, well, how did you do that? How did you get a book and get a publisher for that thing and, put it out? Like it's just, well, I didn't really think about it. This happened. And then I was like, hey, literary agent, what do you think of this? And he's like, yeah, I'll work with you. I was like, you'll work with me. Okay, let's roll. And so, it was never planned, nothing like that. It was just, I'm going to write my story and I'm going to keep writing it. And like the first draft, I thought I was done, man. And it was so far from done.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so far from done. So back to the drawing board, back to rewriting, back to going again. And it was like, again, if you ask me, what's your goal here? I was like, I don't know. I'm just supposed to do this. Like, I'm just supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do this. I don't know what it is, man. I'm just supposed to do this. It just feels like how I'm supposed to spend my time. This is a piece of it,
yeah.
So, yeah.
That's beautiful. I think one of the coolest things that a person can say when a person is no longer here is a life well lived. You know what I mean? Not perfect, nothing like that. It's just a life well lived. Keep going, keep pushing the stone, keep moving. Now, it's amazing when you get through those things. But I remember, again, we talked about pivot points, but what the last thing I like to talk about every episode is like, there is someone listening right now who's sitting in the mud of the creek. You know what I mean? And if they're anything like me, they're not even sure they want to try. Now, we've given a lot of reasons like in the future and all that kind of stuff. And is there anything else you would say to that individual in that moment when they're sitting in the mud? I like the idea of getting into the creek next to them, sitting down with them and having a little conversation about, you got this. Anything you would say to that individual?
Well, first, before you give up on trying, you got to at least allow yourself to feel what it's like to try. You know, like you got to at least, before you say, fuck it, I'm going to be this thing. Just give it a second to see what it feels like to try.
Yeah.
Something, even the smallest thing. And this is dependent on the person, but I would say, okay, tomorrow, just read this book for 5 minutes or watch this podcast, watch this podcast, or just do 5 push-ups tomorrow and just see what that feels like. See if then, cause like, man, the you're talking about the seed, like you just don't know what seed is ready to come out. And so if somebody tries a couple things, they might be like, oh, I forgot about that. I never knew that existed. And now I'm all in on this thing. So like the tragedy would be to not try a couple things that could potentially activate and change your life.
Yeah.
That you don't even either know or you forgot what that was when you were a kid or whatever it is. And so that tragedy to me is like, just try couple minutes of something and just see how you feel after that thing, because that might be
might light that spark.
Man, like just again, just I was just sitting there and I'm like, I'm gonna start writing. You just got to try it, because that spark is in there. I'm certain everybody has that spark in there waiting to come out in something. And it's like, just give it a little bit, just taste it. Don't give up on it without trying a couple of these things, even in the smallest amount, because that could be the most game change thing in your life. And you could, turn back in 20 years and be like, oh man, that one thing activated all of this other stuff for me, man. And
I think we got to encourage people that they got to do it for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
They have to take the initiative. For a long time, I think I was waiting for someone else to kind of push the stone and get it moving.
Right.
Or I don't know what, I think it was more fear than anything. And I was really worried about what other people thought about what I was trying to do, until I realized I'm trying to save my own life here.
Yeah.
And if these people aren't going to help me save my life, why am I listening to them saying why it makes no sense to save my life?
Right.
Or making up my own ideas of what they're thinking. And I was very guilty of that too. And that would hold me in place until you get to the point where you're like, screw everybody else, I'm doing this no matter what. And then you do it.
Yeah.
And you're like, why didn't I do that a long time ago?
That's right.
You hold yourself back and it feels like a pressure cooker. You're not having a good time, while you're waiting to do it. So just starting it really gets some of that anxiety out of there, and you can kind of figure out the next step. I think that was really, really well said, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think that was key. Yeah. Now, Ben, I want to thank you again so much for being here. This has been such a great conversation. I know there's a lot of information we put down, and people will be able to kind of grab onto a lot of gold nuggets, but we're going to put all your information in the bio. So anyone listening is going to be able to reach out to you, maybe get some of your work, get a hold of the books. Where's the best place to get the book?
You can get on Amazon. So I got it on audiobook. It's got me narrating and my music back to when I was 5, actually. Kindle and hardcover. You can get it most stores. You get it at Barnes and Noble. It's available most places. So if you want to get the book, wherever you're comfortable buying your books or your audiobooks, it'll be there. Most
Very
places.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we'll have all your information in there. So anyone listening, make sure you're reaching out to Ben. He's got lots of good stuff and ready to help, I'm sure. So without anything else to say, I guess goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next week. That's a wrap on this week's Shit Creek. Remember, getting your life on track doesn't happen in one big movement. It happens through the reps. So whatever you're facing, find the next rep and do it. If you got something from this episode, hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment and share it with someone who might need to hear it. We believe one thing. Everyone has a shit creek story. The good news is no one has to stay there. Until next time, keep paddling.